Welcome back to the European LCS, where we are about to get into the second game between Vitality and Splyce. Before that, we'd like to remind everybody that a second wave of tickets for our finals in Hamburg will be released on the 29th, which is Wednesday of next week. Make sure you get your hands on those tickets if you'd still like to join us in Hamburg here in Germany. And as we're getting ready for game 2, Verius, Vitality had side selection. You can see them taking to the stage right now. Vitality picked red side. What has to change in picks and bans, if anything, that could help them bounce back?
More engage. Let's try and fight Vitality. Let's try and see if you can be a bit more proactive on the map. Yes, Lulu, she is really strong as a support. She's very well-rounded, she's safe, but I feel like it's not Hachani. Like, when we think of Hachani, he's like that...
Rounded, safe, are not words I associate.
Yeah, exactly. When I think of Hachani, I think this is the guy that plays Tom Kench and goes, I can engage 1v5, and what we've been seeing is, like last week, especially in the series against Origin, the team is more likely to follow up. While he's still maybe as zealous, perhaps the team is a little bit more confident in the fact that they can trust him now. And while arguably, yes, okay, against Origin, it's harder to punish because they are the weaker team. Against Splyce, I feel that given that your back is against the wall, you're already like looking like the significantly weaker team, just throw everything at the wall. Why not see what sticks? Yeah, especially because Vitality, they know they're coming back in summer. They've got that safe spot in 4th. They no longer have an opportunity to get into playoffs. I'm going to have to see what's he got stuck to his head?
I don't know what he's got stuck to his head.
Wonder Boy.
Is that a name badge?
That is Wonder Boy.
The only problem is you can't read it. If you look in the mirror, it doesn't say what we read.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, the Wonder Boy. Alfari had a tweet. He wasn't sure about the blind pick cannon, but apparently it gets plus 50 CS in 10 minutes. So Alfari was amazed by the Wonder Boy himself.
Yep.
And of course, yes, I want to round out that comment about the Lulu. It was first pick for Vitality. And we're on blue side, such high value on that champion. And Hachani and Mickey, their champion pools, maybe we'll get Sion support with all the supports are banned.
Wouldn't that be great? That would be...
No, I don't believe that it will. Karma's still up as well. Tom Kench, Zyra, Thresh, and Malz. What do you think of these bans so far?
Ooh, I think that there's a lot of focus on the supports. I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, so Camille is open, Graves is open, Gragas open, Olaf open. We have literally seen the only same ban that we've seen from game 1 is the Malz ban. Everything else is different so far, which means we're going to see a very different draft phase for both these teams.
Yeah, but what gets picked first then?
For Splyce, probably Camille, because you can flex it, right? You can flex it both top and bot, and they're saying, no, none of that for you, Mickey. But now Splyce, they can get themselves the Lulu, and that's fine for Mickey, because he's demonstrated that he can play both the playmaking, engage style supports, which is the ones that I prefer to see him on. However, he's demonstrated many a time that he can play the Zyra, he can play the Lulu, he can play more the backside, more peely, more like disengaged styles of support.
Okay, but then what does Hachani now play into that? With all of these bans, it is an Ashe lock-in for Vitality, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but...
Karma is available. Yeah. You could also go... Ooh, Nami is an option as well. If you have a little bit of sustain to deal with the harassment coming out from the Lulu. And actually, Ashe, Nami is a pretty safe bottom lane overall. But the fact that Graves has been left available... I'm looking at Jace as well. He's actually been up as well. Still pretty strong, even with the... I mean, just in the current metagame, he's still a decent pick that you can go for.
We'll see if Senkux wants to play it. For now, though, over and above Gragas, Trashy's going to decide to play Rengar in his hands on the Kitty in the jungle. And it's an Ezreal lock-in for Kobbe. So this will be the 3rd time that Kobbe has played Ezreal. The split, he's currently got a 13 KDA on that champion. He's going to have a lot of safety and really annoying poke with Ezreal Lulu.
I think if you want to play for lane, I mean, you could pick both Karma and Nami. Both are fine. Nami would be better at trading. You'd have more dueling power, but if you go for Karma, you have more wave clear, push, disengage, and I could... Well, we wanted playmaking. I think it's risky, though. It's definitely a bit of a gamble picking Bard.
Why is it a gamble?
I mean, because... Bard is usually a pretty good lane bully. He actually does well in trading in terms of early... Actually, I think this can work pretty well.
Okay.
You also have a lot of engage, which is something that we wanted to see more from for Vitality. The Ashe plus Bard, you can set up for... You can either start with the arrow, follow up with the Tempered Fate as an engage tool, or you can set up with the Tempered Fate, force that flash, and then hit with them with an Ashe arrow, right? So you have a lot of mid-game setup. And in terms of early dueling, level 2v2, I kind of want to give it to the Ezreal and the Lulu just because, again, it's very similar playstyle of Ezreal is very strong early on. You put the shield on him, he can run up and trade, but it depends very much on how Hachani utilizes the bard and how aggressively they can play during the laning phase.
And whether or not Hachani makes any more mistakes, like we saw in the previous game, that level 1 trade that allowed Splyce's bottom lane to get that advantage. Now, we talked a lot about the duos. Let's look at the rest of the map as both solo laners need to get locked in for Splyce and Vitality. Shen, Rumble, Syndra are the first bans in phase number 2. Vitality will get the first pick in phase 2 over on red side and the ability to counter pick for one lane.
So they might go Vladimir again. There's no reason not. He's a pretty stable, safe mid laner at the moment. And you can blind pick him into most things. So there's no reason not to pick him. That means you can save your top to then get the counter. Ideally, you don't want to pick a matchup that goes so heavily in the favor of Splyce this time around. And if you are Splyce, I think that, again, you can go for the Cassio. Even though Ryze took a couple of hits, you could also go for the Ryze as well.
I mean, Victor as well, if you want to go the safe route for Splyce.
Yes, very true. Yeah, Victor's a good one too.
Would it match the team comp? I don't know. Fizz, blind pick. Brave, not brave?
I mean, the thing about Fizz is you can flex him, right? So you can actually put him mid and top. Now, Kassadin is a champion I love into Vladimir. I think that it's a really strong pick, simply because you can actually trade pretty effectively early on if you take a couple of extra points in the Null Sphere. And he scales better than Vladimir does. I believe that Kassadin is one of, if not the strongest split pushers in terms of mid lane champions that you can move off into a side lane, and I think that he's going to eventually outscale the Vladimir, and I think that as an answer, it's a great pick. The best thing that you can do, though, is punish it early on, which you actually won't be able to do as effectively with a Graves and a Vlad.
Yeah, Graves and Vlad, not the greatest CC to lock down Kassadin. So Senkex may need to overextend to get in any sort of trouble. Renekton was banned in game number 1, and it will be running into this Gragas top lane, which is what I expect from Wonder. Cabochard, you have a carry. You have a lane bully, a lane dominant champion. You have support from a high damage jungler as well. Is this the game where Cabochard steps up and hard carries portions of it for Vitality? No traditional frontline tank here for Vitality squad.
So, you have early pushing power in mid lane for Nuketoke. You have pushing power in top lane for Cabo, and bottom lane, depending on how you play the laning phase, depending on how the level 1 goes, this bottom lane can be very swingy. It's very back and forth. Both are actually pretty good at trading. It's quite a fun matchup to watch. At least I'm hoping it's a fun matchup, and Steelback just doesn't play scared like he did in game 1.
Well, I had to play scared a little bit. The hook threat from Mickey was definitely on point, so cause and effect in those cases.
But the big thing for Vitality here is that they have a lot of early game power, they have a lot of early game playmaking potential, and they have more tools in their kit in order to bring the fight to Splyce this time around.
Okay, more tools in the kit, if you can survive long enough to use those tools,
yes.
Right? The previous game was over in just over 23 minutes, the fastest win of the spring split. The Splyce boys definitely brought everything that they had. And then hashtag Splyce win, it actually won the fan vote as well. Can they do a 2-0, clean 2-0? That's what we're gonna look at now as we load up onto the ref. Jump onto Twitter and vote. And don't forget to spread the word that Hamburg tickets will go on sale once again next Wednesday. Added a couple extra to the dome. We'll see which teams get there. Quarterfinals locked in now for Splyce. Now it's seeding. Now that's what they're fighting for, right?
Yep.
Vedis, we talked a little bit earlier about how Splyce is sort of potentially chasing H2K. Now, Splyce and H2K actually play each other next week.
Yes.
And in terms of series score and game difference, if Splyce beat H2K in a clean 2-0, it will even their series wins and it will even their game difference. And then it depends on the other results. So for Splyce, it's so crucial to get a 2-0 here. And they're going to look to do the same thing to Unicorns of Love, because that's some of the very important things that can help Splyce secure second place.
To give a bit of additional context onto that as well, H2K, they've already fought the big dogs. They only have teams below them left to play. So they've got Splyce, Vitality, and Origin. So you would expect things to look in favor of H2K, whereas for Splyce, it's definitely an uphill struggle. But what we've seen over the last 2 weeks is definitely a strong Splyce. And when you look ahead to this Splyce versus H2K matchup, you are actually looking for a fight for the second place spot in Group B.
Yeah, and I think that's actually on this Saturday or the Sunday of next week. Also a reminder that week 10 of the EULCS has a Sunday show, 2 best of 3s that could prove to be extremely important as we close out the season. All right, let's take a look at the starting camps here. Nukeduck and Achani coming to annoy Trashy in the jungle. Those Raptors, I think one of them picked up by Nukeduck and none other.
But that's good. Denying that experience away from Trashy, along with getting a bit of experience for yourself, will mean that you should be able to get level 2 a little bit before Senkux during the laning phase. And because you're a Vladimir, you already naturally have a push over the Kassadin. Now, I actually want to take an opportunity to talk a little bit more about this mid lane matchup because we haven't seen a Kassadin for a while. And what you'll often see is the trading pattern for Nukeduck, right? So what he'll do is he'll walk up. There's no need for him to actually hard push the lane this early on because he can just zone Senkux away from the farm. And you'll notice that he holds onto his abilities until after the spell shield is gone. Because Senkux, he's forced to use his Q to farm from a distance, which means that Nukeduck will always be the one in control of this laning phase. It's up until around the level 6, level 7 mark, where Senkux, he has a couple of extra points in his null sphere to give him the bigger shields. And he's gotten himself a bit of magic resistance under his belt. Very likely that he'll go for a very early Megatron and then start to focus on, alternatively, sorry, he'll rather go for the Rod of Ages, so he stacks that HP, makes trading in lane a little bit easier.
Okay, so Senkux survived the early game and then turn it around. Talking about surviving the early game, Trashy was actually waiting in the bushes there for Joko. Joker's going to set up for an early tower dive. Ignite goes down. Senkux is being burst out. Tower aggro. Nukeduck's going to reset it. Now Joko is going to be the target. It's Nukeduck actually forced to flash. Senkux survives. Joko and Nukeduck, they fail the tower dive.
Please, observers, give us a replay of that dive because that was exceptional from Senkux. He took advantage of the fact that Graves cannot hit through the tower. He just played around it beautifully. He almost got himself a kill down onto Nukeduck. But my word, that was fantastic from Splyce.
Oh, Glitter Lance onto Joko. That's going to interrupt the Scuttle Crab. And now Hitchani and Mickey, they're going to do a little bit of battle over this one. Both of them with some empowered autos. Mickey's going to win the extended trade thanks to helper picks.
Now remember, we talked about in Champions League that you want to try and shut this Kassadin down as early as possible. If you can put him behind, get that Vladimir even a slight item ahead, then that's going to snowball the lane so very quickly in their favor. But just watch how the dive actually happens, right? Nukeduck, level 3 to level 2. He tanks up the majority of the damage, but look, Joko misses 1 shot, right? He misses 2 shots. He misses 3 shots. He cannot hit Senkux because Senkux is just abusing the fact that Joko cannot hit through the tower. That was a really good understanding from Senkux of how he's able to get away from that dive, because if that was any other jungler, that would have been a first blood kill for Vitality.
Yeah, unfortunately it was Graves, and that means no first blood, no early advantage. Flashes were blown on both sides of the rift for Senkux and Nukeduck, and both, mid laners have got tools to escape ganks, Sanguine Pool, and then eventually a couple level time, Senkux will have that Rift Walk. But let's take a look at the top lane. Aggressive trading here for Cabo. Actually takes body slam to the face. And Cabo not as big an advantage yet, but he's about to get that dominance. He's about to get some ability to extend his lead.
The obnoxious thing about Gragas is because of his natural resistances due to his W, Renekton isn't as oppressive as he is against a lot of other matchups. The wave clear from Gragas is pretty good, and he has a pretty effective trade pattern with the Q into E and then W, and then he just backs off. So you don't fall into such a deficit as a lot of other tanks who can't trade as effectively. But as the game progresses, it will get harder for the Gragas because his base values are good, but he doesn't scale very well with tanky stats.
But I mean, the utility provides is
yeah,
really
of course.
Right?
He makes up for that in utility, of course.
Yeah. We'll find out if Wonder can make those shots count. It feels like every time I start talking, I'm going to change the topic a little bit.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I'm going to change the topic down to the bottom lane. I want to talk about Hitchani a little bit. He gave up 2 isolated deaths in that previous game. One of them he was punished for recalling in his jungle. And this is a guy who breathed additional life into Vitality last week. Vitality as a team lacking some leadership and decision-making. That's what he's bringing to the team, and that's what he's going to need to do on this bot.
I think it's really important as well to identify how much of a difference this guy is between AOD, because when you look at the middle stat, the control wards per game, this guy on average gets about 15, which isn't that different from, well, it's pretty
average.
low. Yeah, it's pretty low from the league average, whereas AOD, he was getting 25 on average per game. Now, I might not have time for that, as there's a bit of a gank in mid lane.
All right, there's no support from Joko. He's still in the jungle. Trashy just here for support, anticipating a potential dive. Mickey's even come to the mid lane as well. We'll be playing around Hachani in just a moment, down on the mini-map.
They really want to kill him.
Senkex is the target. No flash, no level 6. Insta-flash from Trashy. Respecting the potential engage, no first blood.
Okay, Senkex, he's able to get level 6 now, though, and this is the window with which Vitality have missed. But you can see the big difference in shift in mentality for Vitality between Game 1 and Game 2. They know in this game, let us shut down the Castin. Let's stop him from getting to that late game point in the early game by giving a big advantage over to Nukeduck. And the plays, the logic behind it is great. The setup has been great from Vitality. It's just small executional outplays from Splyce and a good read from Trashy to always be around and help Senkex through this rough laning phase. Now that he's level 6, he's going to be so much safer, and these dives and these ganks from Vitality become about 10 times harder.
Yes, I think that's the truth, especially as Senkex is also going to get his flash available. Oh, very good Cosmic Binding into Kobe. Steelback's not close enough to continue trading, though. Actually, Hachani walks away worse for win. You know, a difference of 10 control wards per game between Hachani and AOD tells you a lot of difference in terms of vision. And then you can have a follow-up discussion on how well they use that vision. We'll follow that this game. But for Hachani, his forward percentage significantly higher. And that's the amount of time that Hachani spends across the halfway mark or the river. And last week was a great example of how Hachani worked with Joko to invade, set up dives, get vision. But that was against Origin, a team that wasn't aware how to punish or how to play around it. This game, this series, Splyce have demonstrated they really know how. As Wonder just trades ultimates in the top lane.
And I think that that's something that we saw a real lack of in Game 1, this great synergy between Joko and Hachani, or at the very least, a follow-on to Hachani's aggression. But he was on the Lulu, now he's on the Bard, he has more of an opportunity to do so. So we have to track this. Right now, Hachani has made a few map movements, has been at the deficit now of Steelback, who's now struggling in terms of the laning phase. Kobe and Mickey really taking advantage of that powerful duo in Lulu and Ezreal. And now you can see that Vitality are very well like, there's a possible dive coming up. TP is available for Wonder. We have no idea of where Trashy is. And just look at the vision control in the bot side of Vitality's jungle.
Yeah, let's actually see if the observers can toggle onto Splyce vision. You can see just how much of the bottom half of the map is available to them. Now, at the moment, Trashy doesn't pull the trigger on that mid lane dive because you can see how many Vitality champions are missing from the minimap. Of course, safe call. Joko's just going to get spotted out as he moves onto the blue buff, and thank you for that toggle, observers.
But it's all about the feeling of dread right now, because Steelback and Hachani know that they can't try and make a play happen bot lane at all because of they don't have enough vision. And while you don't necessarily make a play happen with your vision advantage, it's the idea that you could.
All right, Nukeduck goes down the Hemo Plague. There is support. Hachani and Joko coming in. Ash Arrow catches onto Trashy. Trashy goes down for first blood. The downtown arrow, that gives Hachani access to Tempered Fate, and that gets the flash from Mickey. Great turnaround for Vitality.
The response from Vitality was exactly what they needed to do. The gank comes in from Trashy. All they want to do, if you're Splyce, is just help Senkex go back. If they clear out the mid wave, they can just send the Kassadin back to base. He can get a couple of extra items, and because they have good vision control around the dragon, if Vitality try to go for the objective, they can. But Vitality saying, no, we're not going to let you push up mid for free. We're going to punish you. We're going to look to try and force a play, and that is exactly what they're able to do. They get themselves the dragon on top of it, and Vitality already off to a fantastic start.
Yeah, first dragon, first blood. Vitality, a team that don't often get first dragon in the game. Only 30% of them. And this is the replay.
You can see where, look, Trashy's just coming in. They want to put a bit of hurt down onto Nukeduck. If they can get anything, great, but all they want to do is wave clear. Now, Hachani, Great binding onto Trash. He sets up nicely for the follow-up arrow from the bottom lane. And this is the communication we were wondering from Vitality.
Yep.
Where was the setup play? Where was the preemptive planning from Vitality? And in this instance, they saw, oh, we have the vision of Trashy. We saw him coming in, and let us quickly respond and try and punish Splyce.
All right, Vitality needs to be a little bit defensive here. Cabo shot slices once, then flashes. Wonders managed to escape. A lot of damage onto Senkax. He rift walks out. Cabo shot survives. A 3-on-1 dive. It's not over yet. Trashy's looking to escape, and Nukeduck could cut off the escape path. Nukeduck moving up into the river. Vitality surrounding Splyce. They put down a control ward. Trashy's down. Cabo and Joko get the 2-on-1. And the collateral damage keeps Wonder low. Hemo Plague's on cooldown, so Nukeduck needs a few more seconds. Got a flash available, but not much more after that, and Senkax is able to escape with his life.
Vitality keep the pressure on. Nothing but praise for Cabochard. For a long time, the comments have always been made, when is he going to play carry champions? When's he going to move away from these tanks? And he does a fantastic job of being able to turn around a 1 versus 3 dive, utilizing his dominance in such an effective manner. Now being able to turn it around into a tier 1 tower in the top lane as well is actually going to give Vitality the gold lead at 12 minutes into this game.
Well, Vitality getting that tower is so important for them, extending the lead, giving a lot of gold to Joko, who really could prove to be extremely important for the Vitality composition. Needs to be on the front line with that Vladimir, get some of that burst damage down when Hachani or Steelback set plays up, and good start to the second game. How did Cabo survive this dive?
Now watch, he's stalling onto the Dominus, he can see the dive coming in, and then he utilizes it early to build up his Fury to be able to get himself the heal. And it's this big hit onto both Senkax and Trashy, where he gets a heal and forces Senkax to take a chunk of damage that ends up deterring Splyce from being able to successfully get that dive. Dives have not gone very well for either team early on in this game, but then it's the movement from Nukeduck. He sees the dive has already happened, he was able to push up mid, and because there is no flash available for Trashy after that earlier gank that happened mid, he cannot escape. So, good collapse from Vitality.
I like the slow-mo on the collateral damage there. Just to see the minion wave getting shredded down. So Cabo, at 12 minutes, he's got himself the Black Cleaver. Joko's sitting on Warrior Enchant, as well as the Proto Belt for Nukeduck. So first items kind of completed ahead of the curve. Vitality in a good spot if they want to keep pressuring, and it looks like that's what Joko wants to do. Remember, there's no tower for Wonder to fall back to. He's not exactly overextended, but it's a long way to walk, especially if he's about to run into Joko. And Joko's looking to close off one of the escape paths. Quick draws over, and unfortunately, not enough hard CC to keep Wonder in place.
But look, you can see Vitality, they've just pinged out Trashy, they know exactly where he is. They're feeling confident that they can start to set up a bit of deep vision around the top half of Splyce's jungle. They wanted to try and put some damage down onto that tier 2 in the top lane. You can also see the movement from Vitality's bottom around to the mid. They're going to try and take this tower, take advantage of the lack of wave clear from Senkax.
Okay, Tempered Fate from Hachani. Sidestep as Senkax gets away from the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. The tower will fall shortly, and Mickey doesn't get stunned down. Hachani holds onto the trigger, and Vitality extend that gold lead. They also take another tower.
And this all comes back from the knowledge of where Trashy was. They saw him thanks to this control ward that he's just about to walk over. They saw that he was in the bottom half of his map. They saw that he's gone back to base. That enabled Joko, forcing Wonder underneath his turret. Nukeduck had already started the push early on in mid. The movement then from Steelback and Hachani around to mid lane resulted in a very clean tower take, giving them more control over the map.
Yeah, more control and well-executed plays.
This is great.
It is.
This is fantastic. This is what we want to see from Vitality, because the biggest criticism that we had is they didn't come in with a game plan. They didn't seem coordinated. Like, what were these guys even trying to do? And now, this game, they have a very good understanding. They've done a great job of punishing Splyce, and they seem to know what to do with this league.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to see the difference in a team. Vitality, who lost in 23 minutes in game 1, the smallest of mistakes were so heavily punished. I mean, look at that, plus 4,000 gold. That's the lead Splyce had in game 1. And it's around 2 and a bit thousand, and 15 is in favor of Vitality. Now, let's also give some kudos here. You know, Senkax had a losing lane. Wonder also had a losing lane in the early phases. So Vitality had a team comp that could punish that, and they have done so with great counterplay.
And it's important to remember that Splyce still have a great scaling composition. This edge roll will really hit a big spike at around the 20-minute mark. Looks like that what we often see these days is the Training Force plus Mana build. Still up for debate which one he's going for this game, given that he's only completed the Sheen. Senkux is going to take a while. He wants the fully stacked Rod of Ages, plus either an Abyssal Scepter, or he might go for an early... Probably not an early Void Staff, depending on what he wants. Wave Clear is valuable. He could go for Luden's Echo or Morellonomicon. He actually has a wealth of options in his build path. Morello actually makes a lot of sense if he wants to go into a side lane against Nuke Duck for the health regeneration that he cuts in half.
Yeah, deny that. The Grievous Wounds, I
That's
believe,
the Badger.
is the term you're looking for. Dragon number 2, you have a Vitality. This should be a safe, secure. No one around to contest. I hate to be a Debbie Downer,
You go.
but I've got some information from our stats team, Vedius. The league average in the EULCS when a team is ahead at 15 minutes is 70%. Okay, so if you have a lead of 15 minutes and you look at all the games, 70% of the time you'll win the game.
Wow.
For Vitality, when ahead at 15 minutes, their win ratio is 50%.
Oof,
They have 5 wins and 5 losses. So it's a flip of the coin, you know? We'll see whether or not they're going to land on heads or tails.
And I think back, and I think, could that coin be Hachani by any chance? Could it be him flicking that coin, being like, what will happen in today's game, I wonder?
What will happen on this invade? Let's figure it out. The two faces of Hachani, win or loss. No, that's not fair. There's been 3 different supports over the course of the season for Vitality. And while we were being distracted by the coin flip analogy, Kaba shot with a huge respect flash instantly from Wonder's barrel.
I mean, it's the right thing to do when you don't have enough vision to understand where the rest of the enemy team is. Now, Vitality, though, they have a good idea of where Splyce is setting up. They can see that. You can see they're pinging down onto the mid tower. They know, right, that's probably what Splyce is going to take next. They don't have a minion wave, though. Vitality had already set up the bottom lane minion wave. They have fantastic vision control around Splyce's bottom jungle. And this should result in them taking their final tier 1 tower.
Okay, so I've got a question now. Renekton into this Gragas has not proved hugely successful. Wonder's going to have potentially more impact in team fights. And we know that Senkux can maybe handle like Nuke Duck in a side lane. So how are we going to see lane assignments coming in the next few minutes? We'll talk about that after a potential dive, because it looks like both teams are applying pressure on opposite sides of the map.
Well, right now, the focus of Vitality is because of the amount of control they have over the bot side jungle, they feel confident enough to keep pushing onto this tower. They're pushing into the lack of wave clear on the side of Splyce, because one of the big weaknesses, one of the big risks you have by running a cast-in is that he cannot clear waves very quickly, and now he might be getting dived on.
Oh, great stun from Hachani. Senkux goes down without even needing the Tempered Fate. Now, Wonder's teleported in. His ultimate is available, but there's no support yet. Trashy's making his way down from mid lane, but Vitality, they're not letting up the siege.
They're keeping the pressure up. The teleport is available for Cabo, but I don't know if Splyce have the wave clear.
Look at the 3-man body slam! That's the team fight impact Wonder was looking for, but is not enough damage to follow it up. It's Mickey that goes down before he can get the wild growth off. Wonder's the next target as Cobby's running for his life. Flash and heal is blown. Trashy still not made his way down. Can he close something out? Thrill of the Hunt is available, but you don't want to jump into 4. And Vitality get themselves a few more kills.
Wonder tries to go for an engage, and the execution was great. He's able to land a body slam onto all 3 members, but it doesn't result in any big teamfight win for Splyce. There's still a man down. They're still lacking in Senkux, and their composition hasn't reached a point with which it is strong enough to fight Vitality. They're utilizing this early gold lead in order to win out on a lot of these fights. Now, this comes back to what we were talking about. Play towards the lack of wave clear. Senkux, there's nothing he can really do in this situation. He's gonna get collapsed on. He should have preempted the dive earlier. And this is where you see Splyce just trying to claw together some kind of a defense. They need to keep this tower alive. They cannot lose this much control over the map. And Wonder lands onto all 3 members, but then where does the damage come from, right? They knocked Hachani into the wall. Cobby, he's forced to use his E in. I don't even know if that was properly communicated, because Cobby and Mickey, they did not seem to follow Wonder up on that. Cobby,
No.
he used his arcane shift very late in. It was allowed Nuke Duck to even get the ultimate down onto him. And it was just a poorly coordinated setup or defense from Splyce, I feel.
Didn't have the numbers in their favor at all, and Splyce ended up you know, losing that one. So it extends the gold lead further. Vitality had a 4,000 gold lead, 3 towers to 0, 4 kills to 0. Got themselves some dragons as well. And this is a good turnaround. Now for Vitality to keep this up, right? We need to look at the playmaking power of this Ashe and Bard, and obviously with Nukeduck very well farmed and fairly well fed, that's why he's got the most damage to champions on his team. And the Leandri's Torment, which he's just picked up, is going to amplify that even more.
And Nukeduck, now that he's feeling pretty good. He can move off into a side lane. He can pretty comfortably trade into anyone. And earlier on, you actually asked me about that Renekton pick. Like, what's he going to do? Where's his value going to come from? Well, the fact that now he's got himself that Spirit Visage, he's very comfortable going off into a side lane against Senkox, which is the big thing, because you can move the Vladimir into the Gragas, and you can move the Renekton into the Kassadin, and Vitality will have those winning side lanes. They will have the push advantage. They will always force Splyce to constantly try and swap back, and this will give Vitality the tempo advantage, will allow them to get at vision in the enemy half of the jungle, can then better set up for them to try and look towards this Baron objective.
Yeah. And looking at that Baron is actually going to be very crucial for, actually for both teams if you think about it. Wave clear is okay. You know, it's not the greatest. Ezreal's not amazing. Gragas is okay.
No, it's bad, Fred.
Yeah.
The wave clear is weak.
There's a tiny bit of AoE on both sides, but like really short range and not very effective at clearing it out instantly. So a single Baron can really swing like absolute map control.
Yeah, it can.
As neither team can successfully hold off Baron-empowered minions.
Because, I mean, think about it, right? Like, Senkox, if he has a Baron, then that side lane completely changes. But it's going to be difficult to be able, for Splyce to be able to really set up around the Baron, because look at the vision that we're seeing from Vitality. They are sitting on 9 control wards in their inventory. 9
control wards, 3 blue trinkets, 2 sweepers. So very much about controlling the vision around the map. And the observers have just toggled their Splyce, no vision past their own river. They don't know the dragon's going on, or let me rephrase that. They can't see the dragon going on.
Yep.
They will know it's just been secured. And for Vitality, now we get to judge how well they use these control wards, right? Because they are the team that places so many on average, partially because of AOD when he was playing with him.
I believe the value is 53 on average control wards per game, which is well above the average, which is around like 30, 34, something like that. And it just goes to show, like, even though they are a losing team, they always have a good mindset on vision. And
yes.
While there has been criticism in the past, there has been debate about how they use that vision. Are they just buying a lot of control wards because they spend a lot of time dead? Or are they just not being able to properly defend their own vision?
Well,
it varies depending on which Vitality show up.
Oh, yes. And this game, it's not about being in base with death, because they've got 0 deaths, and they're just trying to extend the vision. There was no real contest over that Brambleback. And Joko, no real support. If you're looking at the minimap, Vitality starting to play the vision game. Mickey's going to clear out as many wards as he can, because look, it's around Baron. That's going to be the objective. Bring Splyce to you, use that Ashe and that Bard to engage, and then kill Splyce.
But remember that Splyce still have a win condition, which is very much that 3-4 item Kobby and the 3-4 item Senkox, right? These guys are powerhouses in the mid to late game. They scale very, very well. And while Ashe will have good scaling, like she definitely has a great impact in the late game, Vlad is very similar. If you give Kassadin and Ezreal this opportunity to come back, especially when you have a Lulu support, this team fighting power of Splyce becomes something that you cannot afford to underestimate. So we want to see now from Vitality what Splyce did in game 1, where they had this advantage and it was just push, 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 push all the time, always using the vision superiority to stop Splyce, or to stop Vitality from being able to answer. It gave them free objectives, and now Vitality, they just need to pull the trigger. They have so much control. We were already discussing it earlier on around this Baron. Force Splyce to come and check, get that pick, turn it into an objective.
And let's follow Hachani or Steel back to start that. To pull the trigger for Vitality. It was Hachani, his leadership, maybe, you know, calling. That was the big improvement last week when he came back over AOD. And that's what I want to see from him. I want to see what level of impact he can have against the number 3 team in the group right now. And Splyce potentially challenging for number 2. If Splyce lose this game, it potentially has huge impacts on that battle for second. And of course, the eventual quarterfinal seed against Misfits.
Yep. it becomes a much harder battle because then the control comes out of your hands. You then need H2K to lose a couple games. Now we see the arrow onto Trashy.
There we go. Trashy's going to try to escape with that savagery. The bowler not going to find anyone, and Mickey and Trashy successfully sidestep a very early exhaust from Mickey. Nuktak didn't even throw down his Hemo Plague. And Vitality, okay, what did they get? A flash and an exhaust from Splyce, as well as True Shot Barrage. Is it enough for Baron? Not safely, I don't think.
A lot of engage tools have now been dropped for Vitality. This could be an opportunity for Splyce to say, you know what? Maybe we can go for a fight now. Remember, some of these item spikes we were discussing have now been reached by Splyce. Could have been a window that they're saying, you know what, we're just going to take our time, we're just going to be a little bit more patient. Splyce they're accepting that they are behind right now, and they're just mitigating whatever they can to make sure that Vitality can't get a big enough lead to break into their base.
Conceding gracefully without conceding too much.
Exactly, yes.
You know, playing it safe. If you look down the farm values, pretty much even across the board here. Small differences at 26 minutes into the game, which are not going to prove too substantial. I think for Splyce, it's so important that they do have 2 teleports. You can see Senkux and Wonder continuously have been in this side lane setup, allowing them to secure the farm and the levels that they so desperately need, as well as, in theory, being able to react.
Look at this though, pings coming down from Vitality. We wanted them to pull the trigger, and now they're going to do it.
Okay, who's going to tank up Baron? Hachani's waiting in the wings. The rest of Vitality make their way out. Baron actually knocks up Joko. True Shot Barrage used just for the vision at this point in time. Steelback's also got that Hawk shot to complement all of this vision. Despite all the control wards and the potential to force a play, it's slowed down the game for Vitality.
So Vitality expected their Baron clear to actually be a lot faster than it was. When they actually started the Baron, they realized this is not going down quickly. Splyce, they should have the realization that this Baron is going to be started. So we have to disengage. We're taking too much damage. If Splyce getting engaged now, we're going to lose the Baron and we're going to lose the game. This results in all of this vision control that Vitality have set up to now go in the favor of Splyce. They have conceded that entire area of the map because they made a decision. They realized that it was the wrong decision and they had to back out. And that is the best case scenario for them because now they still have a lead. They can still look to fight back for that vision.
And the control wards in the inventory is going to help that.
Yeah, just a few.
It really will.
Has he got 3? He's got 3. I think that's overdoing it a little bit, but...
3 more for Hachani, as well as 2 for Joko, 2 for Cabo. We also looked at Wonder down that bottom lane. He'd never really needed to TP up. There wasn't enough shenanigans for him to show his face. And we focused all on the Vitality side of the story. Let's look more towards Splyce. How do they break open this game? Vitality are playing around Baron, so Splyce don't want to give that one up. That's the obvious thing to say.
The thing is, Splyce are in a pretty cool position where they realize the onus is on Vitality to make the move, right? Because Vitality don't feel confident enough right now that their 1-3-1 will consistently or be strong enough to just break into the base of Splyce, which means that Baron has to be a point with which Vitality have to go for, and Splyce are just waiting for that moment. They're waiting for Vitality to try and make a play happen so that they can get the turnaround and use that as a window for them to get back into the game.
All right, reactive play then. Every time I see somebody solo from the Splyce side, I'm waiting for an Ash Arrow or a Bard ultimate. Vitality just brute force face check the tower and take that one down. Senkux waiting on the side lanes as Wonder will get at least a tower. Okay, 1-for-1 trade, but it is inner for outer. Vitality still marginally in the lead as far as map control goes.
But what we've just seen is a movement from Vitality that there is...
Where did it go? Where did it go?
It went that way.
All right, straight between the goalposts.
I'm pointing at the screen and no one can see that. I'm sorry. Right, mid tower going to go down now in favor of Splyce.
All right, Wonder threatens the body slam engage. Nukta can flash ult, can go over the wall. Tempered Fate only onto the tank, so Splyce might be able to get away. 5-man stack. Nukta does not pull the trigger. Joko flashes to safety as the barrel helps him ever so slightly more. And at the end of the trade, Vitality commit for the tower, but lose 2 on the reply.
Now, the reason why Splyce were able to make that play so confidently was because they knew that the arrow was gone from Steelback. Nukeduck was stuck over the wall, which meant that they had no real ways in which to defend that tower. So Splyce felt confident that with the engage tools gone, with no flanking teleport really being an option for Vitality, that they could just walk up to that tower and use their poke and use their siege to be able to take that objective down.
Unfortunately, Splyce's reactive team comp helped out, right? We talked about the mobility and how Splyce are waiting for Vitality to make a decision, then Splyce can make a play.
Exactly, yes.
And they end up prioritizing. You can see the goal differences on your screen. I want to go back to this vision discussion that we've had a lot. Vitality as a team, they place the most, they have the most control wards per game at 53. Splyce have the lowest at 27 on average per game.
But you can make the argument that while Splyce might have the least, they use their control wards more efficiently, right? It could also be that their AD carry has a full inventory and still has a Doran's Blade, so he won't buy a control ward. But here comes the engage.
As we talk about it, Steelback is the man that gets jumped on. Didn't quite see how he was caught out. Trashy's going to trade his life, though, 1-for-1. Senkax flashes away to safety. Now Cabo, with Dominus still on, trying to put the damage down. Kobe and Senkax get out of range of Tempered Fate, and Wonder is being culled down where he stands. The body slam allows enough damage for Kobe to pick up the kill into Cabo. Hachani burns down. It's a double for Kobe's Ezreal. Wonder's looking for another. The barrel not going to be enough to slow Nuke Duck as he tries to proto-belt out. Teleport from Senkax, full HP. Joko's the next target. It's Senkax who gets the kill. Senkax looking for more. Rift walking forward. It's 2-second cooldown at this point. And that's a double for Kassadin.
Splyce with the team fight win. We talked about how these item spikes are so important for Splyce. We talked about how if you give them too much time, they become this composition that can turn these fights in their favor. Vitality, they were not prepared for the trashy engage. While they did get a good reactionary play, it's going to cost them an inhibitor.
I wasn't prepared for the Splyce engage. Vitality somehow lose Steelback and the entire team. And after 30 minutes of being in control, Vitality now have to deal with super minions and the threat that Splyce can play around Baron.
Splyce have reclaimed control of the game. They've got themselves the vision, and now they've got their eyes on that Baron.
Okay, there is that ward that has been denied in the pit. Splyce decide not to touch it. Senkax and Mickey, they're trying to play interference here for Vitality, not letting the Vitality members towards Baron pits, and that's a safe, secure. Just the threat of Senkax alone dissuades Vitality.
Great mobility, enabling him to just weave in and out of the vision, preventing Vitality confidently enough to walk up towards that Baron pit, because there's always that risk that all 5 members are just sitting in the bush waiting behind Senkax. So they are not able to walk up to the Baron. Splyce let themselves an objective, and sure, Vitality, yes, you get this 4th dragon. It sets you up nicely for the Elder Drake, but at this point, Splyce, they're not going to give you an opportunity to consider that objective.
Absolutely not. It's just too little on the Vitality side, unfortunately. Going to end up being a fairly disappointing end to the spring split. The Hachani story, bringing him over, his leadership, benching him, bringing AOD, even having Nuke Duck in the wings, you know. There was no hyperbolic time chamber to turn Hachani into Goku and to save the season for Vitality.
There wasn't. I mean, he took the break. We thought that he would come back stronger, and while he definitely hasn't been the reason for their loss, I just think that Vitality, they've just been a little bit too slow this game. There were so many windows for them to take advantage of. Now, Vitality, they're throwing out the arrows, they're trying to defend, but it's just not enough right now for Vitality.
No, it really isn't. Vitality, yes, they've got dragons on their side, but Ashar is on finding the target. It's a 3-item Senkax, as well as the Medjai's Soul Stealer. He's got that one up to 6.
Senkax, that is rude.
Well, why not? You've survived to late game, turned it around. And Wonder with the rest of Splyce now peeling away in the bottom lane. Nuke Duck gets rooted down thanks to the bowler strike from Trashian. This is pressure on all 3 lanes at the same time,
This is how you play the split push comp. They're just utilizing Senkax's great mobility to move through the base, and this is going to be all 3 inhibitors down for Splyce.
1, 2, and 3, knocking them over like bowling pins. Nuke Duck goes golden to at least avoid the barrel, and Trashy doesn't get the bowler strike. Nukeduck is down. Trashy's going low, forced to retreat. Redemption heals up most of Splyce. Hachani follows thereafter. It's a double kill for Senkax as Trashy gets one before Senkax dies. Splyce turn their attention to the Nexus turrets after acing Vitality, and they turn the game around from a 4,000 gold deficit for a clean 2-0 over Vitality.
Notice the difference. When Vitality had a lead, they were slow, they were calm, they were taking their time. The moment Splyce see a window, they just run straight through the base of Vitality. There was no hesitation from this team. Very similar to how they closed things out in game one. They took the Baron, and then they went straight for the game.
Great turnaround, great comeback, gigantic smiles on the side of Splyce. It's gonna make the game so exciting next week. Between Splyce UOL and Splyce H2K. This series, of course, guarantees Splyce a place in the quarterfinals. Now it determines seed, second or third. Vitality locked in the summer split because they have that safety net in fourth place with Origin going to the promotion tournament.
And I think that when we look back at this game, we think about what are Splyce showing. I think that for Vitality, this was great in terms of the early game. The way in which they responded to Splyce, the way in which they punished Splyce was actually very good, but they didn't take advantage of the biggest weakness of Splyce's comp, which was that lack of wave clear.
Yeah.
We saw them a few times actually group up, push down mid, play towards that Kassadin where they could just very easily break into the base, and then they don't end up doing it.
Unfortunately not. I think some kudos has to be given to Wonder for that Gragas pick as well. Looking at the pick and ban phase, locking the Gragas in, Cabo Shard responded with the Renekton. It was a counter pick, last pick, and it never got going. It never really had the oomph that Vitality needed to control one of those side lanes. Gragas and Kassadin for 30 minutes could farm waves until they were strong enough to win a fight, and then they just won the game.
But it was also great patience from Splyce, right? They didn't get too scared about the possibility of a Baron. They always were aware of, okay, this could be an objective that Vitality go for. What's our plan if they do it? They seemed already aware of this, and then they played around it very, very nicely. And I think that that's a good sign. But I think this early game, how quickly they lost that early game when they picked more of a scaling composition is something that they have to be very mindful of, especially when you go up against teams like UOL and H2K, who will very swiftly look to try and get those early game advantages.
No, of course it is. And I agree with you in the context of playing against stronger opponents. But when you look at the series as a whole, right, the incredible performance in game one from Splyce. Like,
oh, definitely.
The clinical textbook punish plays. The ability to bounce back from a 4K goal deficit, admittedly, has helped when a team like Vitality doesn't necessarily push their advantage, right? But these are great performances from a team who is looking very exciting in the postseason, you know? H2K, UOL, and Splyce from Group B are very close together in terms of skill from what we've seen for the last few weeks. And how on earth do you separate them? I mean, only playoffs will finalize that. But in my mind, I'm already starting to try to wrap my head around it because it's not a clear answer.
And I think what makes it even more unclear is that when you look at the Unicorns, Misfits, H2K, it's also unclear where all those three kind of slot into one another because they're all beating each other, right? So when you have no clear top of Group B, like, well, I mean, in terms of the standings, yes, you have UOL, who's above H2K, who is above Splyce. But when you actually look at how the teams play and how they've done against each other, it's not quite as clear-cut as that.
I want to step back and look at like the big picture, because in EU, there's a very clear bottom four, right? There's no doubt about that. There's a pretty clear top four. There has been in G2, H2K, UOL, and Misfits. And now Fnatic are no longer in the running for that, like really at all. They're officially 6th in the running. And Splyce, they've been teetering between 5th, 6th, and now top 4. Have they cracked it? Is a series against Vitality the one where you decide that? No. I don't think that it is. But we'll find out next week because, of course, Splyce play UOL and H2K. They're locked in for the playoffs. Before we talk more about that, let's chat to Pyrotechnics, who's on stage with Steelback.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great cast on the day. Now, I am joined by Steelback. Unfortunately, rough loss for you guys, but you were able to fire back in game 2, and it looked like you were going to be able to take it for a bit. How do you stay focused after tough losses like that?
Yeah, so the first game, we lost it pretty hard. We got stomped because they had a better draft, and they played very good. They pushed every lane, and they won real quick. And the second game, we were actually winning early very hard, but we couldn't snowball properly. We should have done Nash really quickly, but we didn't manage to. So late game they had Lulu, so they won the late game. Yeah.
Well, they were, in fact, the better team on the day, but you guys still played admirably. Now, I want to ask you about your plans for the rest of the split, because you're pretty safely locked into 4th place. What are you looking to do for the next couple of weeks to keep improving?
Well, the couple of weeks that we will face H2K and Unicorns, so we will use those teams to improve for summer split, because now we're 4th, so we will do everything to improve and come back stronger in the summer split.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Now, so last question for you, Steelback. Just looking back at your split in review, what you think went well, what you think didn't do well, what was the biggest learning you had from the split overall?
Well, I think the split was hard because we changed a lot the players. We were new, Joko was new too, so we had to get along together. In scrims, we're actually doing pretty well recently, but we don't manage to do it on stage. So it seems like we have a bit of an issue on stage, but I hope we will improve and we will do everything to be a good team in summer split.
So you're still looking to improve just overall in general, jiving with the team. Do you feel like you just need a little bit more time, or is there something in particular you need to work on?
Yeah, I think we need definitely more time. I think we need confidence as well. That's what we're lacking, because I feel we're all good players, but when it comes to stage, we seem like we play scary, and it's one of our main issues right now, and I hope we will get confidence and be a strong team, because we can.
Alrighty, so now that we know mostly the teams that are looking ahead to playoffs, who do you think is looking strongest on that side of the spectrum?
Well, I think the 2 strongest teams for me are G2 and H2K, from scrims and from seeing them playing, and then I would say like 3rd Unicorns, and then I'm not sure, but I would say that's the top 3 team right there.
Alrighty, well, looking forward to seeing it and looking to see how you guys perform throughout the rest of the split and in the summer. Thank you very much once again, Steelback. We're going to go ahead, though, and send it off to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Pyra. Always happy to hear from Steelback as well. But right now, we're joined by Sencux and Mickey from Splyce. The first thing I have to say is congratulations not only on the series win, but you guys are locked in playoffs for quarterfinals, at least, Sencux. So that's officially the case is maybe a relief as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, but we all expected the win today, and we are kind of still aiming for 2nd and hoping for the tiebreaker and go in our favor. So we'll have to see after next week. We got 2 of the roughest games in our group. So.
Yeah, you do. A lot of interesting matches coming up. Let's focus on the matches today first to round that out. Mickey, how do you feel the series went versus Vitality?
The first game went pretty smooth, I guess. The second game, we kind of fed the early game really hard.
Splyce, summer.
But we knew the late game is out with Kassadin, so if you get level 16, the game is over. The only problem was we didn't have like much Nash control, but I think if they executed better, then they would win.
Yeah, if they were debating the Baron properly, I think you guys would have lost. And this was actually some of the early critique that people had against Splyce at the start of the season, where you play this like passive style, mid laners that don't have the push pressure early on, and then kind of the map falls apart. Why did you guys go back to this Kassadin pick? Because it still has the same weaknesses, right, that cost you the games, or were you just comfortable doing it against Vitality?
I mean, I think in general it's okay. Like the reason that Kassadin kind of came back last year was also because of that. Mm-hmm. So picking it into that, I think, is still fine. And you can actually win the lane. You can actually pressure the lane after 6. The problem was this game, like, even though I survived the dives early and like it should be game over, I think, because Ringa was ahead and I was still even. But we kind of did fail dive on top, and then we did a fail execution in mid, so Trashy died, and then Graves got back in the game. And from that point, it was kind of hard to pressure. But I think if we kept even and we were even ahead in the early game, I think the game should have been a lot easier for us. And I think in general we're a lot better at early game now than we were last split, and I also think that we're better at like putting pressure points also around mid. Yeah, definitely. You guys coming back in the games was something we saw a lot from you in summer 2016. What do you think specifically has improved in your early game? And I think in general, me and Trashy's team play as a duo has gotten a lot better. We've worked a lot on it, and then I think Mickey and Trashy has been working on some stuff as well in the early game, and I think that helps a lot when, like, it's really underrated how a support and jungler goes around and finds vision, and it makes you more comfortable as laners as well to play the game, because you almost all the time you know where their jungler is. So I think in general we've just improved on a lot of stuff that we didn't really have before. I think we were still great players in summer, but the problem was we just didn't pressure the lanes really much. And then when we got to late game, we could still win these fights where we were really far behind. So, yeah.
If you look at the laning phase, Hachani was out of the roster, now back into the roster. Could you feel that in lane that they didn't have the same amount of synergy that you and Kabe have?
Yeah, I think so. I think the first game, he kinda solo lost the lane, but
Tell us why. What happened?
because he walked in like level 1, he was just standing at the end of the bush, and then we just warded it and walked to him, and I flayed him, and he was like half HP, and then they couldn't get the push and not do anything, so they were just getting pushed in all the time.
And that first game, do you think you should have won that push regardless of the matchup, or is the what was it? Was it Lulu Lucian to Ashe Thresh? Is that skill matchup or who wins?
Yeah, I think if Lulu plays it well, then she should win the push, but I guess that's how level 1 went, so we got the push, I guess.
You did get the push there, and you got to 2 wins in a row. And Sankox, you hinted at it beforehand as well. Playoff race, quarterfinals, and it is so incredibly close. You guys are now at wins at least tied with H2K, but you're playing H2K and the Unicorns of Love in the next 2 weeks. How realistic is the jump for you guys into second?
I think it's pretty realistic. Like you saw, like G2 is undefeated, and we almost beat them last week. So we had a really convincing first game, and then the third one was a bit even, but the second one was convincing from their side. But the second game didn't happen. But I think in general we show that we can still beat the top teams, and we're not a bad team at all.
No, definitely not a bad team. I wouldn't say that. Mickey, if you think of, if you end up in the 3rd place, you'll end up facing Misfits in your very first match in the quarterfinal. Is that someone you would like to avoid? Otherwise, it would be Fnatic, obviously.
Yeah, I think it would be obviously a lot better to face the 3rd team from the other group, but I think Misfits are also a really strong opponent, so I would like to avoid them if possible, but
yeah.
I guess we can beat them for sure.
You could beat them. Well, it'll play out how it'll play out. You got to beat everyone if you want to be the champion, of course. Player of the series in this one was also Wonder. Sadly, not one of these 2 guys here.
Couldn't give it to Mickey. No side support, quarter kill.
No, we couldn't do it.
Sucks.
No. All right, well, next up, the undefeated G2 will be taking on the last place Giants. We will see if they learn a thing or two when we return.
Goes down the Hemo Flake. There is support. Hachani and Joker coming in. Ash Arrow catches onto Trashy. Trashy goes down for first blood. Vitality surrounding Splyce. They put down a control ward. Trashy's down.
The running at Cassian is that he cannot clear waves very quickly, and now he might be getting dive back.
Oh, great stun from Hachani.
The teleport is available for Cabo, but I don't know if Splyce have the wave clear.
Look at the 3-man body slam. That's the team fight impact Wonder was looking for, but is not enough damage to follow it up. Copy and Senkox get out of range of Tempered Fates, and Wonder is being culled down where he stands. The body slam allows enough damage for Copy to pick up the kill into Cabo. Hachani burns down. It's a double for Copy's Ezreal. And they turn the game around from a 4,000 gold deficit for a clean 2-0 over Vitality.